It's a mistake to confuse faithful stewardship with being responsible for outcomes. Wisdom reminds us that the fastest runner doesn't always win the race, or the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. And so we might be doing everything right, and our wife might still disengage, our kids might still drift, and job opportunities might still fall through. Run your best race by focusing on the choices that you can make. If it's to be, it's up to me. This is a model that many of us live by, believing that if we just work harder, try harder, then we can fix all the problems in our marriage, with our kids, or with our jobs and careers. And we end up taking on burdens and responsibilities for outcomes that were never ours to carry. There's grace and freedom in simply focusing on the choices that we can make, running our best race, and surrendering the outcomes to God. Certainly there's a place for intentionality and responsibility, that all too often we end up complaining about our circumstances or blaming others for the way our life is turning out when we have a responsibility to make things right ourselves. And so we should not spend our time simply grumbling and complaining about things that we can fix, that we can make better on our own. At the same time, it's a mistake to confuse faithful stewardship with being responsible for outcomes. That we have responsibilities to show up and do the work that God has given us to do, but this does not suggest that we can control the outcome. As Scripture says, we plant and water, but God gives the increase. And so we have our part to play, but we also have to yield and surrender to God to bring the increase. And wisdom reminds us that the fastest runner doesn't always win the race, or the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle, that time and chance can happen to us all. And so there's a sense in which we can do all the right things and be technically the fastest runner, but still not win the race, or technically the strongest warrior and still not win the battle. That sometimes there's external factors that are working against us, but we still should show up and do our best all the same. I was recently listening to the audiobook To Kill a Mockingbird, and Atticus Finch was making a similar point to his kids, that even though he was taking on a case that he could not win, he could not face himself in the mirror if he did not take on this case, and not just take it on, but to defend his client to the best of his abilities. And when we run our race, we're doing the same thing. That we're not fighting for a particular outcome per se, but simply showing up and being faithful to the work that God has called us to do. And so we're going for our personal best and not necessarily gold. Yes, there's a sense in which we're running for goal and we want the goal, but we're not attached to the goal per se. We're attached to simply being faithful to the work that God has called us to do, to our personal best. And so we're running against ourselves more so than we are trying to achieve a particular outcome, a particular result in someone else or our circumstances. And so certainly we want to live happily ever after in our marriage. We want our kids to thrive. We want our work and careers to flourish. But again, wisdom reminds us that some of this is outside of our control. And so we might be doing everything right, and our wife might still disengage, our kids might still drift, and job opportunities might still fall through. And these are not necessarily failures on our part, that they still come with a lot of heartache and grief and pain. Like Atticus, we're showing up and presenting our best case. We're running our best race and surrendering the outcomes to God. And so we're not failures. There's a sense in which we are winners because we are running our best race. This is our personal best. And so well done, good and faithful servant. And so run your best race by focusing on the choices that you can make. Discipline yourself, train yourself, offer your excellence to God, and then surrender the outcomes to Him. You cannot control others, and sometimes their choices will bring grief into your story. But this is not a failure when you run your best race, when you are faithful to what God has given you to do. And so keep showing up, doing the work, and putting the results in the hands of God. If this resonates with you, then like and subscribe, and share with other men who might also be struggling under the weight of their responsibility and need a reminder to simply focus on the choices that they can make. And then check out this next video, and let's continue the conversation about how we can rise and reign together as kingdom men throughout our life and relationships. Check that out here.